We are going to start this episode off with a story, but before I get into it, I want to mention I will be answering some questions that people submitted on Instagram about the talking stage, some advice they want to know. So if you aren't already following at Human to Human Pod on Instagram, please go do that, and I will be putting a question box before I record every podcast episode topic. So, I have had my fair share of the talking stage. I have lived too many talking stages, and this one was the one that made me truly done, and I'll explain why. So the time was April of 2021. I'm 19 years old, I'm in my second year of university, and we are still in the thick of the pandemic in Toronto. And I had been doing quite a bit of dating app dating. Now, this guy that I met, who really made me completely fed up with the talking stage and made me embrace being single, go listen to last week's episode where I talk about that. This is like your behind the scenes of why I began to embrace being single, because after this date, I was over men, totally over them. So I have been going on so many different dates. I've been getting rejected left, right, and center. To be honest, now that I've been talking to a lot of my friends, most of us have actually had this phase where we're single, but we don't want to be single and we're like dating around and we just keep getting rejected by guy after guy after guy. It's so bizarre, and so many of my friends have lived it. And so I'm on Bumble, and I actually don't even find this guy on Bumble. He sees my profile, but I didn't see his until like way after we started talking, because he DM'd me on Instagram and was like, hey, I saw you on Bumble. And it was like this like whole nice like opener text. It wasn't dry. It was like very sweet. And so we started talking on Instagram, and because it is pandemic times, he's like, let's have a FaceTime date. I'll buy you like dinner or coffee or something for the virtual date. And I was like, what the fuck? And so the first date, we had 2 FaceTime dates. The first date, he didn't buy me anything. I was like, that's weird. Like, we're doing a call. And so we have this like whole long call. And ladies, a huge piece of advice in this episode is have an end time. Have a reason or an excuse to leave a date. These multiple dates with this guy was like the perfect fucking example. Like, if you take anything away, I mean, I hope you take everything away from this episode, but seriously, you need to have a reason to end the date. So we have 2 FaceTime dates. On the second FaceTime date, he ends up like giving me a gift card to Starbucks. I'm like, what is happening? And after both of the dates, like I date, quote unquote dates, I left them feeling like, okay, like that was fine. I mean, we had a lot of things in common, like so many things in common that the conversation flowed, but like I just didn't feel like a spark or anything, if you know what I mean. But eventually we're like, okay, let's go on an in-person date. This guy didn't have a car. Or no. This guy didn't have a driver's license. If you don't have a car, who gives a fuck at this age? No one I know has a car, including myself. We just use our parents' cars if we have our license. But this guy doesn't have a license. For context, I'm 20. Oh, I said I was 19 at the beginning of the story. I'm 20. And so I'm like, okay, I'll drive. He lives like 20 minutes from my house. And so he like plans this date. We go on this whole date. It was really sweet, and like we talked a ton, and like it was honestly like a nice time. And again, we have so much to talk about, but I just don't feel the spark. But on the date, he asked me for a second date. And so like in the moment, whoa, asking me right then and there, like, okay, sure, I guess so. And he took me to like his neighborhood. So I was like, okay, well, I'll take him to my neighborhood, I guess. And I show him around, and as the date goes on and on, I know I'm over it. I know I'm just not attracted to this guy. I know that we just don't vibe that way. And I'm just like, you know what? He's a great person, but he's just not for me. And like that's just how life fucking goes. And of course, I'm driving him home because, oh yes, I drove on both our dates because he doesn't have a license. I'm driving this guy home. I have been on this date for, I think, 4 hours at this point, and it's pandemic times. I couldn't go pee. If anybody knows me, here's a little new tidbit about me. I drink so much water, I have to pee at least every 2 hours, if not every hour. So my bladder is so effing full, and it's still cold outside, so I can't, like, pee in the bush, which I literally have done before on dates when it's been warmer out. And I'm driving this guy home. We're on the highway. I have a question game that, like, he's reading as we're playing, and I'm just over it. And he asks me for a third date, but he asked me it in a really weird way, so I kind of, like, ignore it and, like, breeze past. And then he's, like, kind of, like, asks if I heard what he said. And then he asks me again. And this is where I chose to be a good person, and I shouldn't have. I was like, you know what? I could either be really honest with him right now because he's in my car and he's blatantly asked me for a third date. I very much know at this point I don't want to go on a third, and I could be honest and tell him and be a good person, or I could choose the much easier route and say, yeah, for sure, we can go on a third date, talk about a third date, and then just, like, it never happens. Like, I end up bailing over text. There's so many options of not putting yourself in that awkward situation where you literally reject someone in front of them. Every time I got rejected by the guys previous, at least they didn't do it to my face. So I guess this is a bit of a lesson here to, like, maybe not do it to their face, because it didn't go well for me. We end up having, like, a 2-hour conversation about me not wanting to go on a third date with him. Guys, it was truly like a breakup. It was so ridiculous. I eventually ended up having to, like, tell him why I didn't want to go on a third date. And I was like, you're a really great person. We have so much in common. And, like, you know, you'd be a good friend. Oh my God, me friend zoning the shit out of him. But I was literally like, I just am not interested in you in a romantic way. That's just, like, point blank how it is. AKA, I'm not sexually attracted to you. Again, my bladder's so full. We're sitting and I'm like, you know what? Let's see. We have a 2-second kiss. It is more than confirmed at this point. I am not interested. I am so sorry. I just don't want to date you. This is just not it. He still takes forever to get out of my car. I end up driving him, like, right now we're parked at the side of the road. Then I pull in to where he lives and I am waiting for him to get out of my car. And he's just like, I just don't know what to do here. Like, my hands are tied. Like, I'm just so confused. And, like, I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're trying to do. And he's like, is there anything different I could have done? I'm like, no, it's just some people drive and some people don't. And I was way too nice. And I just, like, I truly felt like I was going through a breakup when I had gone on really 2 real dates with this guy. It was horrible. Oh, and then it gets worse. I know. How does it get worse? It gets worse. He texts me. The texts prior to the one that got really bad don't matter. And yes, it is like 9 months later and I still have the text. Guys, I have the receipts too from a guy who ghosted me, who slid back into my DMs. A guy who ghosted me in 2019 or 2020, maybe very beginning of 2020, who slid back into my DMs and was like, I'm so sorry, I felt bad about what happened a couple months back. Do you want to get coffee? And I was like, fuck no, what the fuck? But guys, I have to keep these receipts. They're so funny and they're so good for the podcast. This is why I have the show. I did not realize my miserable single years would lead to, like, incredible content. Truly. Listen to the Embracing Being Single episode because, woo, this is what got me to embrace it. So he sends me, like, long texts being like, thank you for being so open and honest, blah, 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 blah. Then he sends me another really long text when it was, like, 1 a.m. and I didn't respond. I went to the dentist the next morning and just, like, didn't even get a chance to read it. Then he sends me another text being like, I just was wondering if I could ask you a question. And I was like, I am at the dentist, but sure, whatever. This paragraph that came in was so fucking long, guys. It was scroll. You have to scroll. It doesn't fit into one screenshot is how long the text is. And the moral of the story was that this guy said, I feel like we need to sleep together just to see if we're physically attracted to each other, because I need that clarity for myself in order to have peace with this situation. Yeah. Let it marinate. Let it soak in. My favorite person I told was my first year roommate, who I am still very, very close with, is hopefully going to be my roommate soon if I move out. She was like, "Oh, you pardon me? I owe you what? I owe you nothing, sir. I didn't even owe you an explanation. I didn't even owe you the decency to tell you in person I didn't want to go on a third date, let alone an explanation as to why I don't want to go on a third date with you. I was ghosted like a month before this, and that guy gave me no it was like cold turkey, like no. I don't owe you anything." Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary beautiful people, the talking stage can go many, many, many ways. It can go terrible. I also beg of you to really be careful whose cars you get into or who you drive around, because that is also a safety issue. Okay, try and make sure your friends have your location. They know where you are. You vet the person through FaceTime dates. It's not a bad idea. Guys, listen, I have been on so many FaceTime dates, and first dates are a vibe check. Truly, they're just a vibe check. Am I grossed out by this person? Does this person have nothing to say to me? We could vibe over text, but not in person. So doing a FaceTime date for the beginning is like perfect. Vibe check. COVID is such a good excuse for this. And I honestly don't regret that. I don't regret any of my FaceTime dates, but my biggest takeaway from all of these dates, you need to have an out. Because I didn't have an out on any of these dates with this dude, and I literally couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. I've also had FaceTime dates that go on hours and hours and hours and hours longer than they should have when I already know he didn't pass the vibe check. And I just don't know how to leave. And truly, next week is going to be an episode all about long-term dating. And the talking stage with my now boyfriend went fantastically because I'd been through so many fucking terrible talking stages. And so I beg of you, listen up. Embrace the talking stage. I know I'm just going to tell you to embrace every stage that you're in, but I think you have to, because in my talking stages, I learned so many good tactics that I'm going to share with you now that made I set myself up for success when I finally was going through a talking stage with someone that was actually a potential mate. You know, a potential BF, if you will. All the other ones were just good trial runs. You really get to see what you're interested in. You get to see what's good, what's bad. You get to see what you want, what you don't. And then COVID dates are such a crazy time to get creative too. So, one of the best first dates advice I also have to give, and it has nothing to do with like anything on the date, but if you are in a crazy talking stage phase of your life when you're going on date after date after date, and you're going on a ton of different first dates with a ton of different guys, wear the same outfit. Wear the exact same outfit on every first date because it's a different dude. Why would you wear a different outfit if it's a different dude? No one knows what outfit you wore on your last first date, on your current first, truly. And I say this because I had my jeans down packed, the comfy, stretchy ones that are flattering but not too uncomfortable and not too tight. And then my black tank top that I could sweat in and you couldn't see. And then I'd maybe mix up the sweater. Maybe a flannel if it's more cash. Maybe my nice black, nicer looking sweater if it was a little fancier of an event. And then whatever underwear and socks and bra you want to wear. I personally didn't have to wear a bra with my tank top, which was great. And every time I got home from those first dates, throw that shit in the laundry bin because you know you just sweat buckets on that first date if you are anything like your girl Jess. To circle back to having a reason to cut the date off, I can give you a few different resources. On my first date with my current man, I said my friend Maya was coming to my house at 2 p.m. Our date started at 11 a.m. I got home at like 1:55. It just shows that we pushed that deadline to the brink. And that's why, it's so awkward to end first dates, but at one point you get exhausted, so you need an out to go home. On my second date with my now boyfriend, I actually had a call at 3 p.m. and again, we went on a date at 11 a.m. I was so shocked this guy wanted to go on early dates. I got home at 2:57 and I genuinely had a call at 3 p.m. and oh my God, I was starving and sweaty for that call because truly, You get so hungry on first dates. You get so dehydrated. I feel like a deprived animal after first dates. I haven't peed for hours. My cheeks hurt from smiling and trying not to seem awkward. I'm literally brain dead. I don't know how I functioned in this time when I went on so many first dates, because they just take so much effort and so much thought, because you're meeting a brand new person and you don't even know what you're going to talk about. So I think dates when you're like moving around, when, you know, you have something to focus on is best, because I actually learned that going for coffee or for dinner where you have to sit down, it's for people who are catching up, who already know each other, because it can be like when it's with someone new, it's like an interview. You don't have any stories that you're just going to randomly tell them, because you don't know them that well yet. You don't have anything, you know, blatantly in common that you know about. They don't know about any of your friends yet. So going for a coffee or where you sit down, or going for a meal where you sit down, it's so stagnant and stuck, and like your energy is in one place, and it's like super awkward if you have anything to say because you just stare at each other. But again, I'm just going to keep referencing because it's the only talking stage that worked out for me. My last talking stage was when I was 15 years old, and my last talking stage, and then my more recent talking stage was a guy that I ended up having just like a situationship with, but him and I never ended up officially dating, and we just like had a class together and like went to bars with his friends and my friends. So that doesn't really count as like a date. We didn't go on a date until 2 months in, like a week before he broke up with me. So I'm just going to reference my current boyfriend a lot, and just like, it's a success story. So truly take my success story and use it to your advantage wherever you see fit. We went and he picked me up. If he picks you up, ooh, that's a green flag. If he will make plans with you right away too, green flag. The amount of guys who loafed it on dates with me, I wish I knew that people like my boyfriend existed at that time, because I put in so much effort to try and make a first date happen with someone who could barely make the plans with me, or would bail on them or cancel or never confirm. Ew, we don't want that. That's gross. That's trash. You deserve better. Go on a first date with someone who will actually make the plan with you. Don't beg someone to go on a first date with you, or second or third. Never. Okay? So when my boyfriend and I first started messaging, I literally randomly was just like, hey, we should hang out sometime. And he was like, yeah, when are you free? I'll drive. And I was, you'll drive? You're asking when I'm free? I was like, I'm free on Saturday. And he was like, okay, perfect, sounds good. He's like, do you like Wendy's? I have Wendy's coupons. And we didn't even end up going to Wendy's. We went to Tim Hortons. But I was like, oh my God. And then like he asked me for my Snap, and then I gave him my phone number and my Snap, but mostly my phone number. And we started texting from there. And then like 3 days before our date, he was like, so what time, like, are you still good for Saturday? What time works for you? And I'm like, I'm free whenever. I thought he was going to say like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Ladies, if he's asking you to hang out at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., I don't know. Some of you might be night owls. Some of you might be fine with that, but for me that's a little bit of a I'm not trying to be like a late night hookup. I'm trying to go on a date. So the fact that my boyfriend was like 11 a.m., I was like, what the fuck? To be honest, guys, I was kind of hungover for my first date with him. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't go to Wendy's. Like I can't stomach that right now. I'll get like a fucking bagel from Tim Hortons. And then we ended up walking around this really nice park with this really ginormous hill near my house, which was perfect because it was a beautiful sunny day. We were moving around the whole time. We had stuff to look at. He had questions to ask about the area. And even if like the conversation went dead, we're walking and moving. We're not just like fucking sitting and staring at each other. So that's perfect. And something that's so helpful too is when you're going on a first date, when you meet on a dating app, it's a bit more difficult to do this, but I think you can just totally do it anyway and just change your mindset. Think of it as a vibe check, and think of it as not even a date. Think about it as if you're going on just like a hangout with someone that you could be friends with. When I had my first date with my boyfriend, I just thought, guys, I don't even know if this is a first date. Truly, like, I don't know what the vibe is, like, I'm not, and I took the pressure off. That's the biggest thing, is taking the pressure off, because when you're in the talking stage with someone, I would get, personally, when I was in it, I would get so excited. I wanted a boyfriend so bad. Every single guy I met, I was like, oh my God, he's the future boyfriend. He's the future boyfriend. And I would obsess, and I would tell my friends everything, and I would say every single detail that I loved, and I would look past any little thing that I didn't agree with. And so I think it's so important to sit on your first dates, or your first couple dates, or first couple weeks. One, notice the red flags, because they only get worse over time. Notice the qualities that you're not really into. They will only get stronger over time, and you'll get more annoyed by them. And then also think, like, do I like them? Because sometimes we sit on dates and we're like, do they like me? Do they like me? Do they like me? And like, I wouldn't be my 100% authentic self because I thought they wouldn't like me. The point is to figure out if you like them or not. And if they don't like you, if they don't like your authentic you, why would the fuck would you want to date them? And so something that's good to think in this situation too is, would I even want to be friends with this person? Truly, we should think about it like we're going on a friend hangout. Because when we add the element of sex and romance, we get blind. If you've had a dry spell for a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, you're truly just going to want to get laid. And if your mindset and your goal of the talking stage is to get a long-term partner, and I've been kind of talking about the talking stage this whole time as if it is, because that's what mine was, and I think many people kind of use the talking stage because they want to get out of the talking stage because they want to get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever. And once you add that in, it gets complicated and you put all this pressure that like they're going to be your future husband, and like 9 times out of 10, they won't. And when you don't think they will, they actually might turn out to be a long-term partner for you. And so going into it thinking, would I even want to be friends with this person? Like, do we have similar values? Like, what do they do? What do I like hearing about, like, their friends? Like, what are their friends like? Do they love their friends? Do they have similar relationships with their friends? Or, like, do they speak highly of their friends? What's the vibe here? And I think it's so important, first of all, to listen to the Embracing Being Single episode I just released, because you need to be clear on who you are and what your values are. And you don't even need to be crystal clear on it, but your non-negotiables. I talked to my therapist about my non-negotiables like 2 years before I met my boyfriend. Maybe not 2, maybe like a year, whatever. But I was just obsessing over guys and settling for pieces of shit who hopefully do their work one day and won't be a piece of shit anymore. And I needed to figure out what I actually want in a partner, what I actually want in someone. And a big non-negotiable for me was, I want someone who's passionate. I need to date someone who has something they're really, really into. And every guy that I went on other dates with when my standards were much lower, I didn't talk really openly about the podcast. I wasn't being really confident about it. And they didn't have anything they were super crazy into. Or if they did, I couldn't really relate. And I want to emphasize to trust the world and trust the universe and trust yourself. If you don't trust any of those other things, trust yourself, because there's so many people in the world and you are so fucking awesome and you have so many cool things that you're into or cool things to say that if someone doesn't like them, don't date them. If someone doesn't enjoy hearing what you have to say or like reciprocate the energy, this is the biggest part. If they don't reciprocate the energy that you would want to receive, don't continue going on dates with them, because that's not going to get better. They're showing you who you are. When someone shows you who you are, believe them. Don't try and change them. Don't say, well, he has this good quality and that other one, well, whatever, because no, that whatever is going to be a big deal one day, and it could be something that's like gonna fucking mess up everything. So when you know who you are and your values and what's important and what your non-negotiables are, like my friend Emma, she's like, I need someone to have fun with. I need someone who's adventurous and wants to try different things. I don't want to just lay in bed and watch Netflix all the time. And she knew what she wanted. So when she was looking and when she was dating and when she was going through the different talking stages, she was really like being able to depict, if this guy has that kind of fun, adventurous attribute or if he doesn't. And looking back on your exes and thinking about what wasn't something you like helps so much, because the things that piss you off about your ex, you don't have to date again. You literally don't have to date that again, because you are in this period of opportunity where you could find someone completely new and different, which is a beautiful thing. Don't settle. There's no reason, because it's so much better to be alone than to be with someone who doesn't bring out the best in you, to be around someone that doesn't empower you. I would rather be by myself than be with someone who put me down and made me feel like shit about myself. And it doesn't come across that obviously at first, but if you're talking about something you're so excited about and then the guy you're on a date with goes, yeah, that's fine, I guess, like, I don't know, it's a little weird, or like, oh, cool, but anyway, what I was doing, that's it. You picked up on their energy. They showed you who they were. They didn't vibe with what you were talking about. So fuck them. And if you don't have friends around you that show you that exists, I'm here to tell you it exists. And you need to be patient and wait for it and be more vulnerable with your friends, because your friends might show you they support you so much, and if they don't, break up with your friends too. Okay, that's a whole other thing. We're going to talk about breakups later on in this whole series of dating. So before we get into the more, couple dates, couple weeks into the talking stage, another thing about first dates is don't trauma dump or talk about your ex. And I believe this because if it comes up, whatever. But I think this, again, links back to my Embracing Being Single episode. It's so good when there's a good chunk of time between a long-term relationship and another person you're getting into a long-term relationship with, or someone you really, really like that you're seeing, because you won't feel the need to talk about your ex all the time. If you have a good single period where you make memories without dating someone, like during that is really great, and you're on a first date and you don't need to mention your ex. Even if you're telling a story that's like about how you went on this crazy trip and it was so fun, and let me tell you about the snowboarding that I did because you're talking about skiing, and let me relate to you, and your ex was with you, you don't need to say your ex was with you. Unless you blatantly need to, I wouldn't even say that, because there is a bit of a, oh, are they over their ex in the beginning of first dates? And also in a first date, I don't need to know about your history. I don't need to know about your ex-girlfriend. I don't need to know about how many girls you've fucked. I don't want to know that yet. I loved the mystery with my boyfriend where I was like, I don't even know if he has an ex. I don't know if he's a fuckboy. I don't know if he's a virgin. I can't tell at all. And I'm glad. And we didn't really find that out until probably 4 to 5 dates in, because both of us were at a point where we were so healed from our ex that, I mean, trust me, we still have things we're working on that was ingrained in us from our exes, but it wasn't so fresh that we had to talk about it that early on in our, talking stage. But it was so refreshing because you don't need to know all about someone's past. And it's a bit of an awkward situation, I feel like, to talk about an ex on a first date, because it does leave you being like, well, are they happy they're single? Do they still miss their ex? Are they still caught up on their ex? And you just don't need that. If you get ghosted, I have been ghosted twice, and I have had to ghost once. I don't recommend ghosting, but if it'll save you from getting into the situation that I was in that I talked about at the beginning of this episode, do it. Save yourself a lot of time and bladder space. But getting ghosted is a fucking terrible experience. I felt like my butt was so positive there, but I'm like, no, it's a terrible fucking experience. It's awful. I was absolutely destroyed inside when I got ghosted the first time, because I wasn't only ghosted, but I was stood up on a date and I was blocked. And so I didn't even know I was being ghosted at first, because I was just like, kind of, what's going on? And I'd never been ghosted before, so I just didn't know that was a possibility, and I thought this guy really liked me. Anyway, let yourself feel the feelings of being ghosted. It fucking sucks. It's actually a terrible experience. It's so sad, especially if the dates were going well and you actually vibed and you made plans to see each other again. It's such a weird thing, because it takes you a minute. If someone was mature enough to just be like, hey, sorry, like, you're a great person, but like, I'm just not into you that way. I don't think this is gonna work out, and then you never answer them ever again, at least you told them. Please be mature enough to do that. The situation where I ghosted, I mean, it makes fucking sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, sorry for those noises. But when it's going so well and you get ghosted, it's so easy to be like, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Why did this happen? But it has nothing to do with you. It really doesn't. It has everything to do with that person. And if someone is so immature that they have to ghost you, why would you want to date them anyway? So cry, get drunk with your girlies, just talk to your girlies sober, and maybe fuck someone else, and then move on. I'm not condoning that, because that's not going to help you. It might just make you more sad, but just feel what you need to feel. And at your core, though, I want you to hear my voice in your brain that it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you, and they suck, and they just showed you their true colors. So, this is the fun part, ladies and gents. We're past the first date now. We're past the first date, and this is where things start to go a little crazy, because you really don't know where they're gonna go. Some you really do, and some you really don't. Let's think. Do you really like this person you've been on a few dates with? If the dates after the first date are kind of seamlessly being planned. If someone, again, is taking forever to make plans with you, fuck them, goodbye. They're not meant to be your soulmate. They're just not. I'm sorry to break it to you, girl, but kick them to the curb. But if the dates are going well and you're planning them super easily, this is taken from my dear boyfriend, this piece of advice. He low-key took me through tests. He knew his motherfucking non-negotiables. He wanted to see what I was like around his friends. I had to meet the boys. And if the boys approved, awesome, cool. Again, okay, I love this. I talked about this in the single episode. Let's not put people on pedestals. Let's know, kind of like let's say my boyfriend, he introduced me to his friends and he goes, okay, cool. She met this great expectation that I hoped she would live up to, that she's cool and she got along with them and they liked her. Perfect. Let's not freak the fuck out and decide to marry them now. Let's just continue going on dates, continue getting to know each other. This whole process after the first date is simply getting to know each other, because a lot of values can come out during this time. A lot of things that you could love or could absolutely hate can come up at this time, and just don't be married to the concept of this being your forever partner, because you don't know them well enough yet. And I think during this time it's so important. Don't create a false narrative of who this person is or what this relationship is becoming. I have really gotten myself stuck in sticky, sad, heartbreaking situations where I imagined an entire future with this person before I even got to know them. And that's when you get really fucking sad when it ends. So I think it's so important to really keep prioritizing other things in your life. Don't change plans for them. If you do yoga at 7 on Tuesdays with Holistically Humble like I do, and they say, hey, want to hang out at Tuesday? Say, I have yoga, but I'm free after 8. I have skipped yoga for guys before, and guess what? They fucking rejected me. So why the fuck would I skip yoga when I might not be talking to this guy in 2 weeks anyway, in 3 days even, in 24 hours, he might ghost me right now. And that was actually something my boyfriend found so hot about me. I was like, yeah, I have yoga, but we can hang out after. And he was like, oh my God, that is sexy as hell. She does yoga and she won't hang out with me till after. Perfect. You are showing someone who you really are. If you have plans with the girls, don't fucking cancel your plans with the girls, but don't be dry when you reply. If they're like, hey, are you free on Friday? And you're like, oh, I'm actually going out with my friends on Friday. And that's all you say? Bro, you're not going to fucking move past the talking stage. You're never going to get to the long-term relationship if you're that dry. I would say, oh yeah, sorry, I can't on Friday because I have plans with the girls, but I'm actually free Saturday afternoon. Are you free sometime then? And then it progresses. But don't cancel plans for someone you just met. It's not worth it. You don't even know where it's going to go. And then when you keep going on dates, you can kind of continue to take them through tests. At this time, I think you shouldn't really introduce them to your family yet. It's too early. It all depends on your situation with your family. All of this must be applied to the context you're living in. But my boyfriend kept taking me through these really fun tests that they were fun when we ended up talking about them later. And at the time, they were just really fun because I was getting to know him and he was getting to know me better. But when you get high, if you're a weed smoker, the ick comes so much faster. It's so much more prevalent. So I recommend, if both of you and the person you're seeing, I'm not going to say dating because you're not official yet, you're not exclusive yet, I'll talk about that soon. If you and that person both are weed smokers, smoke weed together. Maybe invite them over to your backyard, smoke a little doob, and watch a movie. And this might be the time when you start wanting to have sex. I don't recommend having sex on the first date. I think it all depends on who you are as a person. I was actually playing a question game recently and they were like, should you talk about sex on the first date? And it depends who you are. If you're going to have sex on the first date, I think you should talk about sex in some capacity beforehand. I also recommend you try and make sure that they are free of STIs and you are as well, because that is a pickle I got myself into that I will also explain in a future episode. Let me know if you want to hear that. Go to my Instagram and tell me if you want to hear that story. But, where was I? Sex. If you're going to have sex on the first date, then I feel like you should, be on the same page. But I would wait after the first date. After the first date, kind of who gives a fuck? I mean, third date is kind of your golden ticket, in my opinion. I also truly believe it all depends on who you are. If you're a virgin, I mean, depending on when you want to lose your virginity, like, depending on how comfortable you want to be with the person, like, maybe don't take this advice at all. But I want to know what I'm working with before I cuff it. You know, before I make him my man, I kind of want to see what's going on. You know what I mean? You might find out people have a different side to them when they get freaky, when they get sexy in the bed. And so I think you should kind of suss that out before you know, lay down, boom, we're together. But it all depends on the person. Don't take my advice if this doesn't feel good for you. This is just what my experience was. So back to the tests. Another good one, other than the high one and introducing them to your friends, is getting drunk together. My boyfriend felt like he really, if you're a drinker, again, these all, whatever, shut up, you know, it depends on the context, but I drink and my boyfriend drinks, and he's seen a lot of girls get air quote white girl wasted, and I think that our true colors actually kind of come out when we're drunk. And I think a lot of girls, and boys, fucking everybody, insecurities can come out when you're drinking, or just like your true personality can come out, or like some people can get really weird around the opposite sex when they're drinking. And it's so funny because like I introduced my boyfriend to my friends and my brother and his friends in an intimate 5-person gathering in my backyard in the summer. And I got so drunk I ended up throwing up. And like a week or two later, he was like, I've never even seen you drunk. And I'm like, yes, you have. I threw up in my backyard. And ladies, I don't condone this. Like, truly, I'm trying to get out of that phase where I throw up from drinking. But he was like, I've never seen you drunk. And I'm like, it's because you've never seen me drunk and get like obnoxious. And that's just not how I get when I get drunk. And he was like, oh. But again, like, you don't want to date someone if you don't like who they are when they're drinking. Because, like, that's a whole other situation you need to deal with. Now, let's talk about the actual word dating. Actually, I don't think we should talk about that one yet. I think we should talk about the word exclusive. Someone actually submitted a question asking my definition of dating. And I think everybody's is so different. My personal definition is when they ask you to be their girlfriend or boyfriend or partner. And I think that comes it could come at the same time as having the exclusive conversation, but I feel like in our society now, people take a really long time to commit. My boyfriend says he doesn't say the opposite, but he says like he committed too fast in a previous situation, and he was like, whoa, I did not know what I'm getting myself into. So, I mean, it's very contextual, but like, I think that people nowadays are way more hesitant to ask you to be their boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, but they'll be exclusive with you. So I think I actually think it's more important to have the conversation of if we're exclusive. And what that means is I'm only hooking up and kissing and seeing and dating you. See, I use the word dating. And they're only doing that for you. And so when I was seeing my boyfriend, I called it seeing instead of dating because he didn't ask me to be his girlfriend. But like we both kind of knew we were dating, but it wasn't like we had the boyfriend-girlfriend title. And that's when I would really say we're dating. But when we're in that talking stage phase, I use the language seeing and the guy I'm seeing, and he was like, he got to use it in such a sexy term. He was like, oh, my girl. But I'm like, I'm not going to say my man. I mean, I could say my man, but like, I would prefer to say boyfriend. So that's a whole other situation that I'll get into in a second. But I think it's important to have the exclusive conversation when you would be really upset and heartbroken if they were to go hook up with someone else or be going on dates with someone else after the 1 to 2 month mark. It depends how often you're seeing each other. If you're seeing each other more or twice a week, every single week for 2 months, I think at that point you can be like, okay, listen, like I don't want to like fucking have you be fucking other bitches when like I am really getting to know you and I'm really getting feelings for you at this point. But it all is a matter of like your circumstance and the situation you're in. But for me too, it was funny because I think it's really hard to like ask someone like, are we exclusive? And I remember in a situation I was in 2 years ago, I was like, okay, listen, because I was the one who's bringing up the exclusive conversation, because I kind of just, you can tell when you're ready for that conversation, when you're really thinking about them all the time, telling your friends all about them, and like, you're at a point where you're like, you know you like them that much. I was like, well, if you were going to go to the bar, would you hook up with somebody else? And he was like, I don't know. Would you? And I was like, well, I don't want to. And I'm going to be honest, if you were to hook up with someone else and I wasn't at the bar, I would be really upset. And that's how he was like, okay, we're exclusive. Blah, blah, blah. And then with my current man, we more kind of joked around being like, oh, you're just in it for the sex. Like, oh yeah, you're just like, blah, blah, blah. And like, we both knew we weren't. And then eventually we did have like I brought it up. A piece of advice I received one time that was really, really helpful was, if you are in a situation, or if you are having to have a conversation that's super awkward, just name that it's awkward. Just name it before you start. Like, hey, I'm nervous to have this conversation with you. But, like, I wanted to talk about, like, if you want to be exclusive or not. Or if you're hooking up with other people or not. Or if you're seeing anybody else other than me. Because I would like to just be seeing you. And this is also a big thing I want to mention. Is don't say, what are you looking for? They respond. Because what can happen then is you bend yourself backwards to try and just meet what they want, instead of stating what you want. Because you know what you want, and there's a reason you're bringing it up. It's because you know what you want. But if you say, hey, what do you want? Then I think a tendency, especially for women, is to just accommodate that. And that's how you end up getting in a situation where you get heartbroken. I know, because it happened to me. But you know what you want, so walk into it saying, hey, I just like want to have this conversation I'm nervous to have, but I just wanted you to know that I don't want to see other people. What do you think? And then you have stated what you want the whole time. You have put your desires out there, and at least if it ends, you can walk away saying, I stayed true to myself the whole time and I don't have a regret, which is so fucking important. Sometimes when you bring up the exclusive conversation, that's when the boyfriend-girlfriend talk can just come right up. I think it's even also really great to clarify with the person you're with, what do you consider dating? When do you consider it official? I kind of considered it official when my boyfriend asked me to be his girlfriend, but then it took so long after we had the exclusive conversation for him to ask me to be his girlfriend, and now we've been together for quite a few months that I just count the day we met, because we weren't seeing other people. And so that's a funny thing too, is some couples I know never had an anniversary, and they never even talked about an anniversary, and they were like, I don't even know how long we've technically been together. And then other people, they talked about it and they agreed on it, and it's when they had the boyfriend-girlfriend conversation. Or for me, I'm like, I don't give a fuck, I'm saying it as soon as I met you, because as soon as I met you, I was like, yeah, cool, I am in for this. Something when I was spitballing with my boyfriend to kind of figure out what I should talk about on this episode, because, well, there's just so much. I think the dating episodes are always going to be the longest, but he was like, I think you should make sure you have deep conversations with the person, and like that your relationship or your situationship is not just about sex, because he was like, I think that happens often where people are having a situation and they're hooking up all the time, and they might not even be exclusive yet, and the guy might think it's just about the sex. And I think that's why you need to make sure you're on the same page that it's not. And this is when I want to empower you listening right now, because you deserve the world. You deserve someone to match your energy, and you deserve someone who truly is interested in getting to know you. And it can feel so weird and scary, and that's because it's new, to just openly say what you want, who you are, be very clear on what values you have that you need to align on. I have a list, I'll give you examples. Different things you're an activist about, your religion views, your political views, what do they feel about women's rights, racism, homophobia, all that stuff is very important, body image, and vaccinations. Be clear about, where's your wiggle room? Where are you down to compromise? And what things are a genuine we must align on some way, or be able to be open to each other's opinions on. I think it's definitely important to be open to the other person's opinion, and then know the things that you're like, sorry, I can't date you if this is a belief you have. If you don't think women should make as much as men, well, maybe we shouldn't date, And I want to empower you that you are a boss-ass bitch who should only commit to someone that makes you feel good, that truly makes you feel good. Because it is not worth being in a relationship just to be in a relationship if you don't feel like your best self when you're with them. The cuddles won't feel good if their comments feel like shit, okay? Ooh, the talking stage is brutal, but it is hilarious. My best stories come from it. And also, it's so funny to circle all the way back to the beginning of this episode. I should have never even gone on that second date with the guy, because this is like a sign if you know what you want and what you don't. I was in a FaceTime group chat, or like a group FaceTime with my friends from high school. And I was like, I explained to them my situation, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go on a second date with this guy. I'm just really unsure about him. I'm not completely drawn to him. I'm not a hell yes. And if you're not a hell yes, you're a no. And they were like, Jess, if you're asking us this, you obviously don't want to go on this second date. Like, what? Like, don't go. And then one friend, and I hope she's listening right now, she was like, Jess, you clearly are asking us, but like, you kind of already have your mind, you kind of already have your mind made up, which was that I'm going to go. And she goes, but at the very least, just do it for the podcast. And ladies and gents and everybody in between and outside of that box, we did it for the podcast. Okay, so I'm just going to answer a few Q&A things that were sent on Instagram, which is so fun. My Instagram feed is so fucking sexy. I am putting so much work into it. It is insane. And now every time before I record an episode, I'm going to put a Q&A. So if you ever have a question you want to ask about a topic, the ones that are coming up that I'm going to do episodes on are about how to dump him or her or them, and how to get over heartbreak. And then I want to do episodes also about like laziness and how it's a lie and how to embrace that in your life. And I might do one about grief. It's just such a heavy one, and I have tried to record it like 4 times now, and I might eventually, I already put a question box on that a while ago, but I might put one again. And if you have a topic suggestion, I will put a question box as well on my stories coming up in the future. And please always DM me if you have a topic suggestion, because I love getting suggestions and knowing what you guys want to hear. So pretty much the number one question I wanted to answer that was submitted was, how the fuck do I make him date me? You have the answer right in that question. Never convince someone to date you. And it's hard because I know the girl, like, she's a very good friend of mine who submitted this question, but I need to talk about this like I'm talking to everybody. And when I would want to say this to her too, though. It's like, you can never convince someone to date you, and you never ever fucking should. You should be on the same page. If they won't ask you to be their girlfriend yet, depending on what stage you're at, you can maybe ask why. What's holding you back? Let's have an open conversation about it. But you are worth so much more than convincing someone to date you. It's not worth it. That is called proving your worth, and you never have to prove your worth. You are enough no matter how many people are interested in you and want to date you. So please don't sit and feel like, how can I trick this guy into asking me to be his girlfriend? It's like, again, tricking a guy into proposing to me. Why would you ever want to be in a situation where you're dating someone when you had to beg them to date you? I mean, after a certain amount of time, I was a little bit like, why hasn't my boyfriend asked me to be his girlfriend yet? But at no point in time I was like, let me convince you. Because I know my worth. I know I'm a fucking boss ass bitch. You should never have to I should never have to beg you. Think about that. Think about if you're begging someone. Circles back again to the beginning of my story. This guy was begging me to understand why he was begging me to have sex with him. He was blatantly, guys, he was begging me to have sex with him. And truly, I hope he does his self-work, because that's sad, and you don't want to be that person. And if you are, it's okay. I mean, I've been there. I've been the person who was rejected and then sent a long paragraph a week or 2 later. But it happens. But no, you're better than that. A question was, how do you know he's the one? You don't in the beginning. You don't in the talking stage. I didn't really know. I really, really enjoyed going on dates with my boyfriend, and I had such a good time with him, but I didn't really know wow, this guy is wow. I mean, we both had a big moment on our 5th date where we were like, okay, this is definitely someone I want to keep seeing. This is going really, really well. I like him a lot. But a couple months in, then I was like, yeah, this guy is awesome. And if you keep asking yourself, how do you know if he's the one? You're just you might try and convince yourself he is, and you don't want to do that. Tips when getting ready for a first date. I pee so many times. I eat before the date. If you can't, I actually think it's really, really hard to eat before a first date too. I struggle with that. I call a friend. I get opinions on my outfits, but once you get your good outfit jam-packed, or down-packed, you know what I said, wear it all the time. Maybe even think about questions to ask them, different things. If you met on a dating profile, different parts of their profile, you could ask them about, having something in my back pocket that I could talk about or ask them about if there's a quiet lull. It really helps calm my nerves. It's also okay to be completely nervous because it is a scary situation. You're meeting someone brand new, but you can only learn and grow in those situations. They're so fucking funny as soon as you're out of them and like a couple days or a couple months have gone by. And then another question was, do I let him pay or do I pay? I realized like really recently, I have paid on a few first dates. And it's because like he picked me up and then it was COVID time. So we picked up Thai from a nearby restaurant and I ordered it on my phone on Uber Eats. So I ended up paying. But if you're at a restaurant too, I always like offer to split it. I always offer to pay and I like do the classic pull out your wallet. I don't expect a guy to pay. Like it's obviously so nice when he does. And like there is a bit of the expectation of like, I pull out my wallet and then like he pulls out his and the waiter's like, oh, like, are we splitting it or are we together? And then if there's like a pause, I just say split immediately. I've actually done that on a date where like if there's like kind of a pause when the waiter's like, are we doing it together or separate? And I'm like, oh, separate. Like if it's like, okay, separate, yeah. Like I wait a hot sec for like him to answer first. I like give him the opportunity to answer. And then on a date, I literally had split it before. And then on a date, I've paid for the whole thing. And then I've had like it paid for me on the date too. So I think it really just depends on your situation. And yeah, those are all our questions. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this assisted you in your talking stage. It's truly one of the funniest stages of life. And we go through it probably at many, many different stages of our lives. So don't be discouraged if you are any age in the talking stage. And I hope that you are empowered to be the boss ass bitch you are and to never convince someone to date you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you on my Instagram page at human2humanpod. So much going out there. And I have 3 more episodes of this series. And my last thing, guys, Valentine's Day is coming up. If you are in the talking stage, I went on a date on Valentine's Day last year. That is so awkward. Hang out with your besties. Send your bestie something you love. Oh my God, I remember last Valentine's Day, I found out so many people were dating who I had no idea were dating before. Announced it, which is like not a weird time. Like, I guess it makes sense, but I'm like, wow, all the couples like to come out of hiding at this point, which was hilarious, but it's fine. Like, trust me, please don't, it's natural, but don't feel pressure to like have a boyfriend just because it's a fucking day. Okay, thank you for listening. I love posting so much more often. Follow me on Instagram at Jessica J. McDonald as well. If you like the show, please tell the internet you like it, rate, review, subscribe, do the whole thing, and download the episodes.